The sky over Seoul turned dark at exactly noon. It was not clouds. It was not an eclipse. It was something much worse. Ho stood on the rooftop of the United Nations building and watched the massive ship descend through the atmosphere. He was 62 years old, a retired general who now served as Earth's representative to the Galactic Council. In his long career, he had seen many strange things, but nothing like this. The ship was enormous. It stretched across the sky like a floating city made of black metal. Red lights blinked along its surface. The sound it made was deep and terrible, like thunder that never stopped. Park stood beside him. She was his aide, a young lieutenant with sharp eyes and quick thinking. Her hand rested on her sidearm, though they both knew a pistol would be useless against something this big. "Sir," she said quietly, "should we evacuate the city?" Ho shook his head slowly. "If they wanted to destroy us, we would already be dead. They want something else." He was right. The ship stopped moving when it was still high above the buildings. A smaller craft separated from it and began to descend toward the rooftop landing pad. It was shaped like a teardrop, smooth and silver, moving without any visible engines. Ho straightened his uniform and walked toward the landing pad. His heart was beating fast, but his face showed nothing. He had learned long ago that showing fear was the worst thing a leader could do. The silver craft landed without a sound. A door opened in its side, and a ramp extended to the ground. What came out was not human. The creature stood nearly 2 meters tall, but it was thin like a stick. Its body was covered in hard plates that looked like armor made of bone. It had 4 arms and 2 legs. Its head was shaped like a triangle, with large black eyes that reflected the light like mirrors. When it moved, its joints clicked and rattled like dry leaves. Behind it came 2 more creatures, smaller but similar in shape. They carried long weapons that hummed with energy. The tall one stopped in front of Ho and made a sound that was part hiss and part whistle. A small device on its chest glowed, and then words came out in Korean. "I am envoy of the Helix Confederacy. You are the leader of this species." Ho kept his voice calm. "I am Ambassador Ho. I represent Earth in matters of galactic relations. Welcome to our planet." The alien's eyes seemed to study him carefully. Its head tilted to one side in a way that looked almost like curiosity. "We have watched your world for many cycles," the envoy said. "We have studied your kind. We have seen what you are capable of." "We are a peaceful people," Ho said. "We wish only for friendship with other species." The alien made a strange sound that might have been laughter. "Peaceful. Your kind runs for hours without stopping. Your bodies heal from wounds that would kill any other species. You lift objects many times your own weight. You survive in temperatures that would freeze or burn any civilized race." Ho frowned. He did not understand what the alien was talking about. "These are normal things," he said carefully. "All humans can do these things." "Exactly." The envoy's voice became cold. "That is the problem." It raised one of its 4 hands and pressed something on its wrist. A holographic image appeared in the air between them. It showed a news report from last year. A grandmother was carrying 2 small children through floodwater. The water was up to her chest, but she kept moving forward with the children held above her head. "This female is elderly by your standards," the envoy said. "Yet she carries 2 young while moving through dangerous conditions. She should be dead. She is not." The image changed. Now it showed a construction worker in. A wall had collapsed, trapping another worker underneath heavy concrete. The first worker was lifting the concrete with his bare hands while others pulled the trapped man free. "This male lifted over 300 kilograms without mechanical assistance," the envoy continued. "His muscles did not tear. His bones did not break. This is not normal." Another image. A marathon runner crossing a finish line in extreme heat. Scientists in a laboratory working for 30 hours without sleep. A mother fighting off a wild animal to protect her child. A farmer walking 20 kilometers through snow to reach a hospital. Your species calls these ordinary acts, the envoy said. The Confederacy calls them weapons of war. Stepped forward, unable to stay silent. These are not weapons. These are just people living their lives. The envoy turned its mirror-like eyes toward her. On any other world, these individuals would be classified as enhanced soldiers, biological weapons designed for combat. The Confederacy does not permit such things. Ho felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. What exactly are you saying? The envoy stood very still. When it spoke again, its voice was flat and hard. The Helix Confederacy demands that Earth surrender all to our custody within 30 standard cycles. Failure to comply will result in planetary sterilization. The words hung in the air like poison. Ho's voice was steady, but his mind was racing. We have no program. The people in those images are ordinary citizens. That, the envoy said slowly, is what concerns us most. It turned and began walking back toward its ship. At the ramp, it stopped and looked back. 30 cycles, Ambassador. Surrender your weapons or we will destroy them ourselves. All 8 billion of them. The silver craft rose into the air and disappeared into the massive ship above. Slowly, the great vessel began to move away, heading toward orbit. Ho stood alone on the rooftop, staring at the sky. Sir said quietly, what do we do? Ho did not answer for a long moment. He thought about his granddaughter, who was 7 years old and could already swim across the Han River. He thought about his own father, who had worked in the coal mines for 40 years and was still strong enough to carry heavy bags of rice. He thought about every human being on the planet, going about their ordinary lives, doing things that apparently terrified an entire galactic civilization. We cannot give them what they want, he finally said, because what they want is all of us. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number that connected directly to the Secretary General of the United Nations. This is Ambassador, he said. We have a problem. The aliens have given us 30 days to surrender Earth's program. There was silence on the other end. What program? The Secretary General asked. Ho she looked back at him. In her eyes, he could see the same terrible understanding that was forming in his own mind. That is exactly the question, he said. According to them, the program includes every human being on the planet, all 8 billion of us. The silence that followed was the loudest thing Ho had ever heard. Dr. Bai had not slept in 2 days. She sat in her laboratory at the Korea Institute of Science and Technology, surrounded by screens filled with data that made her head hurt. But she could not stop reading. She was one of the few people on Earth who studied alien life forms. For years, she had worked with specimens and samples obtained through trade with the few friendly species humanity had contacted. She knew more about alien biology than almost anyone else on the planet. And now she understood why the aliens were afraid. Her colleague, Dr. Sung-ho, entered the lab with 2 cups of coffee. He was older than her, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been her mentor when she was a student, and now they worked as equals. Did you find anything? He asked, handing her a cup. Bai took the coffee but did not drink it. Her hands were shaking slightly. I found everything, she said, and it explains why they want us dead. Sung-ho sat down heavily in a chair. Tell me. She turned one of her screens toward him. It showed a comparison chart of different species in the Helix Confederacy. Look at this, she said. The species that sent the envoy. Average body temperature tolerance, 15 to 25 degrees Celsius. Anything outside that range causes organ failure within hours. Humans can survive from -40 to +50, Sung-ho said slowly. Exactly. Bai pointed to another line on the chart. Bone density. They have hollow bones to reduce weight. One hard impact can shatter their skeleton. Meanwhile, human bones can withstand forces that would crush steel. She switched to another screen. It gets worse, or better depending on how you look at it. Healing. Most Confederacy species cannot regenerate tissue at all. If they lose a limb or suffer major damage, it is permanent. Humans can regrow skin, repair muscles, even recover from brain injuries. Sung-Ho was staring at the data with wide eyes. I knew we were different, but this. There is more. Bai pulled up another file. Endurance. The average can run for approximately 4 minutes before their muscles stop working. They need to rest for several hours to recover. A human marathoner can run for over 2 hours at high speed. An ordinary human can walk for an entire day if necessary. What about strength? Proportionally, humans are among the strongest species in the known galaxy. A human mother can lift a car to save her child. This is documented. There is no other species that can match this output without mechanical assistance. Sung-Ho set down his coffee cup. His face was pale. They think we are monsters. No, Bai said quietly. They think we are weapons. Living, breathing weapons that can survive anything, recover from anything, and keep fighting long after any sane creature would have died. The door to the laboratory opened. A military officer entered, followed by 2 guards. He was General Jin, commander of the United Earth Defense Initiative. He was a large man with a serious face and medals on his chest. "Doctor," he said, "I need you to come with me. The United Nations Assembly is waiting for your report." Bai nodded and gathered her files. As she walked past Sung-Ho, he caught her arm. "Bai," he said quietly, "what do we tell them?" She looked at him for a long moment. "The truth, we tell them the truth." 3 hours later, she stood before the emergency session of the United Nations in Geneva. Representatives from every nation on Earth were present, either in person or through video connection. The room was filled with worried faces and whispered conversations. Secretary General called the assembly to order. She was a small woman with silver hair and calm eyes. She had led the UN through 3 international crises already, but nothing like this. "Doctor," she said, "please present your findings." Bai stepped up to the podium. Her heart was pounding, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "Distinguished representatives, I will be direct. The Helix Confederacy has demanded that we surrender our. They believe we have a secret military program that creates enhanced warriors." She paused, looking around the room. "They are wrong about the program. There is no secret laboratory. There are no genetic modifications. There are no experimental procedures." She pressed a button, and the same comparison charts she had shown Sung-Ho appeared on the large screen behind her. "But they are right about the soldiers. Every human being on this planet is, by galactic standards, a—" The room erupted in confused murmurs, raised her hand for silence. "Explain," she said. Bai took a deep breath. "Earth is what call a Class 7 death world. High gravity, extreme temperature variations, violent weather patterns, dangerous predators, toxic plants, diseases that constantly evolve and attack. Every species that has ever lived on this planet has been forced to become strong, fast, and tough just to survive." She pointed to the screen. "Humans are the result of millions of years of evolution on this death world. We developed endurance running to chase prey for hours until it collapsed from exhaustion. We developed healing abilities to recover from injuries that would kill other animals. We developed resistance to temperature changes, to diseases, to poisons." Her voice grew quieter. "Every human alive today is the descendant of survivors. Our ancestors lived through ice ages, plagues, famines, floods, and wars. The weak died. The strong survived. We are what remains." She let that sink in before continuing. "To the Confederacy, we are not people. We are weapons. A species of 8 billion soldiers, each one capable of things their warriors can only achieve with mechanical suits and genetic modification." A representative from Germany raised his hand. "Doctor, Are you saying that ordinary humans, without any training or enhancement, are more dangerous than alien soldiers? Yes, Bai said simply. A human grandmother is more physically capable than an elite warrior. A human child can survive conditions that would kill an adult of most Confederacy species. We do not need because we already are, all of us. The room fell completely silent. Secretary General spoke into the silence. Then we cannot give them what they want. There is no program to shut down, no soldiers to hand over. They are asking us to surrender all of humanity. Yes, Bai said. That is exactly what they are asking. Ambassador Ho, who had been listening from the front row, stood up. His face was grim. Then we have only one choice, he said. We must convince them that attacking us would be the worst mistake they have ever made. Looked at him with tired eyes. How do we do that? Ho thought about the alien envoy, with its thin body and fragile bones. He thought about the terror in its voice when it described ordinary humans doing ordinary things. We show them, he said slowly. We show them exactly what 8 billion can do when they are threatened. Bai watched the representatives begin to argue and plan. She thought about her own life, about the small acts of strength and endurance she had always taken for granted. Staying awake for days to finish research, walking through winter cold without a coat, recovering from illnesses that would have killed her alien colleagues. She had never felt special. She had always thought of herself as ordinary. Now she understood that ordinary for humans was something extraordinary. And she wondered if the Confederacy truly understood what they had awakened. The emergency meeting lasted for 3 days. Representatives argued, debated, and sometimes shouted at each other. But in the end, they all reached the same conclusion. There was no way to surrender. There was no program to shut down. The aliens wanted all of humanity, and humanity was not willing to go quietly. General Jin stood before the assembled leaders on the final day. He was a man who had spent his entire life preparing for war, but this was not a war he had ever imagined. We have 27 days left, he said, his voice filling the silent room. The Confederacy fleet is holding position near Jupiter. Our sensors count over 1,200 warships. Each one is capable of destroying a city from orbit. He pulled up a holographic display of the solar system. Red dots showed the alien fleet. Blue dots showed Earth's defense forces. The difference was overwhelming. We cannot match them in space, Jin continued. We have fewer than 50 ships capable of leaving Earth's atmosphere. Most of them are cargo vessels, not warships. In a direct confrontation, we would be destroyed in hours. Secretary General leaned forward. Then what do you suggest, General? Jin's face hardened. We do not fight them in space. We let them come to us. On Earth, in our gravity, breathing our air, dealing with our weather. On our ground, they will have to face us directly. And that is something they do not want to do. A representative from Japan raised her hand. You are suggesting we invite them to invade. That seems unwise. Not invite, Jin said. Prepare. They will come whether we want them to or not. The question is whether we are ready when they arrive. He switched the display to show Earth. Points of light appeared across every continent. Every city, every town, every village on this planet will become a fortress. We cannot stop them from landing, but we can make them regret it with every step they take. The planning began immediately. In South Korea, Oh Jin heard about the situation from his television. He was a fisherman from Island, 58 years old, with a weathered face and hands rough from decades of pulling nets in cold water. He had never been a soldier. He had never fired a gun. He was just a man who caught fish. But when the local defense coordinator came to his village asking for volunteers, Jin was the first to raise his hand. I am old, he told the young officer who took his name, and I do not know how to fight. What use am I? The officer looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. Sir, can you swim? Of course. I have been swimming since I was 3 years old. In cold water. Jin laughed. I dive for abalone in winter. The water is cold enough to kill most people in minutes. The officer nodded. Then you are more useful than you know. The aliens cannot survive in water below 20 degrees. Our coastal defenses need people like you. Jin thought about that as he walked home. He thought about all the mornings he had spent in freezing water, his body aching from the cold, his fingers numb as he worked. He had never thought of it as special. It was just his life. Now he understood that his ordinary life had made him something extraordinary. In Seoul, Lieutenant Park coordinated the city's preparations. She worked 18 hours a day, organizing supplies, training volunteers, and setting up communication networks. She forgot to eat. She forgot to sleep. But her body kept moving, kept working, even when her mind was exhausted. She was not alone. Across the city, millions of people did the same. Office workers who had never held a weapon learned to shoot. Grandmothers who could barely walk practiced evacuation routes with children. Students put down their books and picked up tools to build fortifications. One evening, paused on a rooftop to watch the sunset. Beside her stood Sergeant Jin, a young infantry commander who had been assigned to help with the defense. "Do you think we can win?" asked quietly. Jin was silent for a moment. She was 26 years old with short hair and steady eyes. She had joined the military because she wanted to protect people. Now she would get her chance. "I do not know if we can win," she finally said. "But I know we will not lose easily. My grandmother survived the war in 1950. She walked for 40 days through mountains and snow with nothing but the clothes on her back. If she could do that, then I can do this." Nodded slowly. Every Korean family has a story like that. Every human family has a story like that, Jin corrected her. That is what makes us dangerous. On the 25th day, Secretary General addressed the world. She stood in the United Nations building, cameras broadcasting her image to every screen on the planet. She was small and old, but her voice was strong. "Citizens of Earth," she said, 25 days ago, we received an ultimatum from the Helix Confederacy. They demanded that we surrender They did not realize that they were asking for all of us. She paused, letting her words settle. "I will not lie to you. The enemy is powerful. Their fleet could destroy our cities from orbit. Their technology is beyond anything we possess. By every measure, we should be afraid." Her eyes seemed to look directly through the screen, meeting the eyes of every person watching. "But I am not afraid. Do you know why?" She lifted her hands, showing them to the camera. They were small hands, wrinkled with age from years of work. These hands have held dying soldiers. These hands have pulled survivors from rubble. These hands have worked through pain and exhaustion to build something better. And these hands are not special. Every human being watching this has hands that have done the same. Her voice grew stronger. "We are not because of any program or experiment. We are because we are human, because we have survived ice ages and plagues and wars, because we refuse to give up even when everything tells us we should, because when someone threatens our children, our parents, our homes, we do not run, we stand." She straightened her back and raised her chin. "The Confederacy sees our strength as a threat. They are correct. We are the most dangerous species this galaxy has ever encountered. Not because we are cruel or violent, but because we do not know how to quit. We do not know how to surrender. We do not know how to die quietly." Her final words rang out across the world. "To the Helix Confederacy, you wanted come and take them. All 8 billion of us will be waiting." In his small house on island, Jin watched the speech with tears in his eyes. He thought about his wife who had died 5 years ago. He thought about his children who lived in Seoul with their families. He thought about his, who were too young to understand what was happening. Then he stood up, put on his jacket, and walked to the beach where the defense teams were waiting. He was just an old fisherman, But he was also something more. He was human. And that, he was beginning to understand, was the most dangerous thing in the universe. The Confederacy fleet arrived on the 29th day, one day earlier than promised. Perhaps they hoped to catch humanity unprepared. If so, they were disappointed. 1,200 warships darkened the sky over every continent. They came down through the atmosphere like metal rain, their engines screaming, their weapons glowing with barely contained energy. The noise was so loud that windows shattered in cities across the world. The light was so bright that it turned midnight into noon. General Jin watched from the command center buried deep beneath the mountains of Provence. Screens surrounded him, showing images from every part of the planet. He saw the alien ships descending over Seoul, Tokyo, Beijing, New York, London, Cairo. He saw drop pods separating from the main vessels, falling toward the ground like seeds of destruction. "They are landing everywhere at once," his aide reported. "Initial estimates suggest over 2 million ground troops." Jin nodded slowly. 2 million against 8 billion. The numbers were in humanity's favor, but numbers meant nothing if you could not survive long enough to use them. "How long until first contact?" "The first wave will touch down in Hawaii in approximately 4 minutes. Jin opened a communication channel. "All units, this is command. The enemy is landing. You know what to do. Make them regret every step they take on our world." The channel closed. Jin sat back in his chair and waited. In Hawaii, Sergeant Jin crouched in a trench with her squad of 12 soldiers. They were not elite troops. They were ordinary infantry, men and women who had joined the military because they needed a job or wanted to serve their country. None of them had ever fought in a real war. But all of them were human. The first drop pod hit the ground 300 meters from their position. It was a black cylinder, twice the height of a person, covered in strange symbols. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the sides of the pod blew outward and the aliens emerged. Jin had seen pictures of them. Seeing them in person was different. They towered over the humans, nearly 3 meters tall in their powered exoskeletons. The suits were made of dark metal and glowing lights, designed to help their fragile bodies survive on Earth. Each alien carried a weapon that looked like a cross between a rifle and a cannon. There were 20 of them from this pod alone. More pods were landing all around. Beside Jin, Private Nowu whispered, "They are big." "They are also slow," Jin replied, "and clumsy, and they cannot take off those suits without dying. Remember your training." The aliens formed into a line and began advancing toward the human positions. Their movements were careful and mechanical, controlled by the exoskeletons rather than their own muscles. They moved like machines, not like living things. Jin raised her hand. "Wait for it, wait until they are close." The aliens came closer. 100 meters, 80 meters, 60. Now, the humans opened fire. The first volley of bullets hit the lead alien directly in the chest. The exoskeleton armor held, but the force of the impact staggered the creature backward. Before it could recover, 3 more soldiers fired at its legs. The joints of the suit, which were designed for strength rather than flexibility, could not handle the stress. The alien toppled forward and crashed to the ground. The other aliens turned toward the source of the gunfire, but they were too slow. Jin was already moving, leading her squad in a wide arc around the enemy formation. The humans ran at full speed, their legs pumping, their hearts pounding. They moved faster than any Confederacy soldier could follow. Private Lee One, the youngest member of the squad, reached the fallen alien first. Without hesitation, she placed her rifle against the gap between the helmet and the body armor and fired. The alien shuddered once and went still. "One down," she reported, already moving to the next target. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, 18 of the 20 aliens were dead or disabled. 2 had managed to retreat to their drop pod and seal themselves inside. Jin let them go. They were no longer a threat. Her squad had taken casualties. Private Young had a broken arm from where an alien had grabbed him. Private No Wu had been hit in the chest by an energy blast. The impact had burned through his armor and scorched his skin underneath. But he was still standing, still fighting. Jin walked over to him. "You should go to the medics." Wu shook his head. Blood was dripping from a cut on his forehead, mixing with the sweat on his face. "I can still move. I can still shoot. I will rest when this is over." Jin looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "All right, but if you fall down, I am leaving you behind." Wu grinned. "I do not fall down." Across the island, similar scenes were playing out. The aliens had expected their superior technology to overwhelm the primitive humans. Instead, they found themselves facing enemies who moved too fast to track, who took injuries that should have killed them and kept fighting, who seemed to be everywhere at once. In the command ship orbiting Earth, Fleet Commander Vox watched the reports coming in from the surface. His body trembled with something that felt very much like fear. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Our soldiers have the most advanced equipment in the Confederacy. They should be winning easily." His tactical officer, a young named, pulled up the latest data. "Commander, the humans are not behaving as expected. They should be unable to match our forces, but they are faster, more durable. They take wounds that would kill any civilized species and continue to fight." "Show me." Displayed footage from a soldier's helmet camera. It showed a human female, small and thin, charging directly at a fully armored warrior. The alien swung its weapon, hitting her across the chest. She flew backward and hit the ground hard. Then she got up. Her ribs were clearly broken. Blood was coming from her mouth. But she got up, picked up her weapon, and fired 3 shots into the alien's helmet. The camera went dark. Vox stared at the screen. "That is impossible. The impact force alone should have killed her." "It should have," agreed quietly, "but it did not." The commander turned to look at the planet below. 1,200 ships, 2 million soldiers. The greatest invasion force the Confederacy had ever assembled. And they were losing. "Send more troops," he ordered. "Send everything we have." Hesitated. "Commander, perhaps we should reconsider, if the humans are this dangerous." "We cannot retreat now." Vox's voice was sharp with anger and fear. "The Council would never forgive us. We must win this war no matter the cost." Bowed his head. "As you command." More drop pods fell from the sky. More aliens poured onto Earth's surface. And waiting for them, in every city and every field and every mountain, were the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. 8 billion fighting for their home. Back in Hawaii, Sergeant Jin reloaded her weapon and looked toward the sky. More pods were coming, many more. She was tired, her body hurt. She had not slept in 2 days. But she was human, and humans did not know how to quit. "Here they come again," she said to her squad. "Let us show them what we are made of." The battle for Earth had only just begun. The invasion continued for 7 days. 7 days of constant battle across every continent. 7 days of death and fire and desperate struggle. And slowly, impossibly, the tide began to turn. Reports flooded into the Confederacy command ship from every front. None of them were good. In the mountains of Nepal, a group of Sherpa guides had led an alien battalion into a trap. The aliens followed them up a narrow path, confident in their powered suits. But at 4,000 meters, the altitude became too much. The thin air overwhelmed their breathing systems. One by one, the invaders collapsed from oxygen deprivation, gasping and choking in their suits. The Sherpas, who had lived their entire lives at these heights, walked among the fallen aliens and disabled their weapons. They did not even bother to run. "How is this possible?" Fleet Commander Vox demanded when he heard the report. "Our suits are designed to handle low-oxygen environments." They are designed for environments with 80% normal oxygen, his science officer explained. The humans operate comfortably at 60% or lower. Their bodies adapted to use oxygen more efficiently than any species we have encountered. In the Sahara Desert, the story was even worse. A Confederacy armored column had advanced across the sand, expecting to crush the scattered human defenders with overwhelming firepower. Instead, they found an enemy that seemed to appear from nowhere and disappear just as quickly. The humans moved through the desert without vehicles, carrying only water and weapons. They struck at night, when the temperature dropped and the alien heat regulators struggled to compensate. They attacked at noon, when the sand became so hot that it damaged the sensitive electronics in the alien suits. They used the dunes as cover, the wind as a weapon, the endless emptiness as a shield. After 3 days, the armored column was reduced to a handful of damaged vehicles. The human defenders had lost fewer than a dozen fighters. But it was in Siberia that the legend began. Her name was Lee Bora. She was 72 years old, a retired schoolteacher who lived alone in a small village near the Arctic Circle. When the aliens came, they seized her village as a forward base. Most of the villagers were taken prisoner or killed. Bora escaped by hiding in a snowdrift until the aliens passed. Then she started walking. The nearest human outpost was 15 kilometers away, across frozen wilderness. The temperature was negative 30 degrees. The wind was blowing hard enough to knock down a grown man. Snow covered everything, making navigation almost impossible. Any normal person would have died within the first kilometer. The aliens who tried to pursue her did die. Their suits, designed for temperate climates, failed within minutes. They froze solid, their bodies preserved like statues in the endless white. But Bora kept walking. She had grown up in this cold. She had spent winters here when the temperature dropped so low that spit would freeze before it hit the ground. Her body was adapted to the cold in ways that the aliens could not understand. Her blood flowed steadily. Her muscles kept working. Her mind stayed clear. 4 hours later, she arrived at the outpost. Her fingers were blue with frostbite. Her face was raw and red, but she was alive. "The aliens," she said to the shocked soldiers who met her at the gate. "They are at my village, 40 of them, maybe 50. Most of their vehicles are damaged. They cannot move in the cold." The commander of the outpost, a young captain named Park Sung-min, stared at her in disbelief. "You walked 15 kilometers in this weather, without protection." Bora looked at him with tired eyes. "My grandmother walked farther during the war. This was nothing." Sung-min sent a strike team to the village that night. They found the aliens huddled inside the buildings, their suits nearly drained of power, their bodies weak from the cold. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it was over, Sung-min returned to the outpost to thank Bora. But she was already asleep, wrapped in blankets, a cup of cold tea beside her bed. She had not even waited for praise. She had done what needed to be done, and then she rested, just like any human would. Stories like this spread across the planet. The fisherman who swam through freezing water to plant explosives on an alien ship. The farmer who stayed awake for 4 days to guide refugees to safety. The child who ran 20 kilometers to warn a village about an incoming attack. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things, simply because they were human. In orbit, Admiral Shin led Earth's counterattack against the Confederacy fleet. His flagship was a converted cargo ship called the Defiance. It was slow, poorly armed, and held together with repairs that should have failed long ago, but it was still flying. "The alien ships are repositioning," his navigator reported. Her name was Han, and she had been awake for 60 hours. Her eyes were red and her hands shook slightly, but her voice was steady. "They are pulling back toward Jupiter." Studied the tactical display. The Confederacy fleet was in disarray. They had expected a quick victory, a simple conquest of primitive aliens. Instead, they had found a nightmare. They are retreating, he said slowly. Nodded, some of them. Others are still launching attacks on the surface. Then we will stop them. Opened a channel to the rest of Earth's makeshift fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Shin. The enemy is running. Let us give them something to remember us by. The human fleet was outnumbered more than 20 to 1. They should have been destroyed in minutes. But they fought anyway, because that was what humans did. They flew their damaged ships into battle and fired their outdated weapons and rammed their vessels into enemy craft when nothing else worked. And somehow, impossibly, they won. Not completely, not decisively, but they won enough. The Confederacy fleet broke apart, ships scattering in all directions as their commanders realized that this war could not be won. The humans pursued them to the edge of the solar system, never giving them a moment to rest or regroup. Back on Earth, General Jin watched the final battles from his underground command center. His face was gray with exhaustion, his uniform stained with coffee and sweat, but he was smiling. They are leaving, his aide reported. The main fleet is in full retreat. Ground forces are being evacuated or abandoned. Jin nodded slowly. And our losses? The aide was quiet for a moment. Heavy. We lost many people. Many cities are damaged. It will take years to rebuild. But we won. Yes, sir, we won. Jin leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. He thought about all the people who had fought and died in this war. Soldiers and civilians, young and old, from every country on the planet. They had stood together against an enemy that should have been unbeatable, and they had won. Not because they had better weapons, not because they had superior strategy, but because they were human, because they refused to give up, refused to surrender, refused to die quietly. He opened his eyes and looked at the screens showing the retreating enemy fleet. Let them run, he said quietly. Let them run back to their council and tell them what happened here. Let them tell the whole galaxy that Earth is not a world to be conquered. His aide nodded. What do we do now, sir? Jin stood up slowly, his tired bones protesting. Now we rest, we mourn our dead, we rebuild our homes, and we prepare. Prepare for what? Jin smiled grimly. For whatever comes next, because they will be back someday, or others will come, and when they do, we will be ready. He walked out of the command center and into the cold night air. Above him, the stars were shining. Somewhere out there, the remains of an invasion fleet were fleeing toward the darkness. And on the planet below, 8 billion were beginning to rebuild their world.